Welcome back, everyone. It is Thursday, and tonight we are meeting up with our partners over at Texas Monthly. The holiday travel on the minds of so many people, and you might be wondering right now if anything has changed since last year's meltdown involving Southwest Airlines. Who can forget that? Let's go ahead and bring in Joseph Guinto, who has covered this topic extensively for Texas Monthly. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us. First off here, I want to begin with talking a little bit about what employees, we've heard that employees there are complaining about technology and the policies regarding scheduling, sick calls, all of this after last year's travel troubles. How has all of that changed now, and is it enough to avoid another potential meltdown like what we saw last year?
Yeah, I guess that's the question that Southwest has spent tens of millions of dollars trying to answer. They've invested in a lot of different things, technology being one of them, some changes to the crew scheduling policies, but also a lot of hardware, equipment like de-icing trucks, hundreds of thousands of gallons of de-icing fluid. What Southwest found when it looked into what happened last year was that it had a multi-stage problem. And one of the first stages was it responded to the winter weather very poorly. There was a massive winter storm that stretched from Seattle to Baltimore, and Southwest was hit really hard in Denver especially, and in Chicago as well, two of its biggest cities. And it didn't have enough equipment to respond properly to that. Planes were left at the gates because there was nowhere for them to go de-ice. There may have not been enough fluid because fluids were freezing. They had a multitude of problems. And once those problems compounded and crews got stuck in place, the technology problems became apparent. There was communication problems between crew members who were out in the field and the Love Field headquarters, and things got worse and worse progressively, and eventually Southwest ended up canceling 17,000 flights. It's about 14% of their overall schedule in about a 9-day period, which was about 2,500 more flights than all other of the 10 biggest airlines in the country combined had canceled in that same period. Right. So it was a massive problem, but they have spent millions of dollars trying to address it, and they have upgraded in many different ways. But right now, they're not promising that they're going to get through this perfectly. It depends on the weather, depends on the storms, and it depends on whether they stress test their system enough.
Yeah, and no two storms are the same. We know that, so we'll just have to wait and see the next time one of the big ones hits. Hey, I wanted to ask you, Southwest also continues to face a potential strike now. This time it's involving its pilots. The union that represents the pilots, they announced that they've opened a regional strike center. Why is this center important, and what still needs to happen before that strike can actually take place?
The centers seem to be sort of you could almost possibly read them as a bargaining chip. They're certainly necessary if a strike does go into place, because it gives the pilots a chance to coordinate picket lines around the country. It gives them a chance to sort of keep an eye on what the company is doing, what the airline is doing. But for now, we're a long way away from a strike, and yet closer in many ways than Southwest pilots have ever been. At the end of this month, they'll be meeting with federal mediators, as they have been for quite some time now. They've been without a contract for several years. And they hope to reach an agreement, but if they don't, the pilots will have to be released from the mediation, which the mediator can do. And if they are released, there's a 30-day cooling off period, and after that, the pilots can strike. There are a lot of processes in place that the federal government has to hopefully prevent that kind of a thing. The White House can get involved, and it can stop it from happening if they think it's a threat to the transportation network. But the pilots are fairly close now. This labor strife has been going on for quite some time, and it's not something that we've seen at Southwest in quite a number of years. I think there's only been one strike in the whole history of the company, and that was back in 1980, and that lasted about a day or two before people started crossing the picket lines, and but it was never with pilots. So it's something that the company is really concerned about, and certainly something that the pilots feel like they've gotten a little closer, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, we're hoping they can figure that out soon. Flight attendants also at Southwest, they're also pressing the airline for more pay. We last heard that they reached some kind of a tentative agreement. When will that be finalized, or is there still a potential, you think, for a strike among the flight attendants too?
Well, they just started voting on it. The agreement, I think, was reached at the end of October, and it was sent out, and the votes just started happening in the middle of this month, in November. So there's about 19,000 flight attendants, so it's going to take a while to get all the votes in. I talked to the union president, the flight attendants union president, and she said, whatever happens will be up to the flight attendants. They'll make up their own mind from here. But she did feel comfortable that they had finally reached a good agreement with the company. It's the pay raises are fairly significant, around 30%, and they believe that that addresses some of the things that they've been asking the company for since dating back to 2018.
Hey, if people, by the way, if they are traveling over the holidays, what do you think they should do to protect their purchases, maybe limit any kind of travel troubles?
You have to obviously advocate for yourself with the airline and make sure that whatever your carriage, your contract is on they used to put them on the back of the tickets, but now you can find them online. You do have certain rights that you can protect. It's one of the things that the Department of Justice has looked in the Southwest for, whether they did enough when flights were canceled, whether they compensated passengers enough, whether they returned their baggage in a timely manner. So those are things you want to advocate for. But I think it's also important to remember that the airlines do want to get you where you want to go. When you look at what Southwest has done and the millions of dollars that they spent, the effort that they put into hopefully correcting the problems that they had last year, you can see that obviously they don't want to leave you stranded, and they want to make sure that they may not give you all the legroom you want or anything good to eat on board, but they definitely want to get you where you want to go.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Joseph, well, thank you so much for your time, for joining us, giving us some insight. There is still a whole lot more to discuss, and Joe has laid it all out in his article. You can take a closer look at TexasMonthly.com and just click on this article to read a whole lot more. Don't go away. CBS News Texas will be right back.